Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank each of you for being here. We appreciate, as if you had any other choice, being here, but we do appreciate it very much. Ms. Garcia, I'm interested, particularly in your role with the Resource Center and in your dealings with DHS. I have a bill that is before DHS right now, H.R. 1615, dealing with FOIA. As you know, DHS has got the largest backlog of any other agency in the way of FOIA requests, and I'm very concerned about that, and that's what this bill addresses, is that backlog to try to catch us up and try to help us to address it. But what I want to ask you about is particularly the fees that are involved in this. What do you find most problematic? Is it the high price of the fees, or the estimation of what the fees are going to be? What's the biggest problem when it comes to the fees for a FOIA request?
Well, one of the largest problems, Mr. Carter, thank you so much for your question. One of the largest problems is that the agencies know that most requesters don't know the law. So they actually make things up as they go along. A lot of contractors are working at DHS, and so what's being not shown in the full-time employee numbers that were given by Mr. Cummings, the ranking member, is that, in fact, there's this whole crew of shadow workers at DHS. They're there to kill the FOIAs, not to fulfill them. They will give you a phone call and tell you, just as was said in the earlier panel, that your FOIA doesn't make sense or that it doesn't somehow comply. All of that time is added to the fee that it took to process your request. On top of this, because the contract regulations don't allow contractors to make decisions, then you need a second layer where an actual employee rubber stamps the work of the other person. Now you've gotten a bill for double the price. Right.
Well, let me ask you, you gave us an example where you had requested a $60 fee waiver, and you got an 8-page response. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I read through this, and this looks like legal jargon to me. I can only imagine how much this costs to assimilate as opposed to just waiving the $60 fee.
That's exactly right, Mr. Carter. In point of fact, the request only amounted to $3. But after they added the contractor and the rubber stamper, then it actually resulted in a $60 fee. So it was something like a 1,900% increase. And then someone who gets paid roughly in the neighborhood of $225,000 a year took the time to write out, not including benefits and perquisites, took the time to write out an 8-page legal memo, like to the nines, like we were going to court. So yes, in fact, they add their own. 25% of these budgets are going to FOIA defense, and that was as much as I could adequately, honestly compute. It may be more. I would say that your bill trying to curb DHS expense in FOIA is very welcome, precisely the provision that talks about auditing, as long as we don't hire another contractor to perform the audit.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. How often, did they give you an estimate of how much it's going to be?
They do, and there is an interesting procedure that's starting to get widespread, like catching like wildfire all over the federal government, which is they do give you an estimate. They say, if you don't give us this money or promise to pay this money within 10 days, we will close your request. Of course, you can appeal this decision, no problem. You have 45, 60 days, whatever it is. The problem is, once they've already killed your request, what incentive does the agency have to reverse its original position and then suddenly grant you the fee waiver and revive your FOIA request? It doesn't happen.
Right, right. Okay, again, in dealing with the fees and when they're coming up with these estimates, one thing that bothers me is, obviously my bill deals with DHS, but we need a consistent policy throughout all the agencies. Is that something that you feel like, Ms. Mitchell, is that something that you think would be possible? Because it appears to me, from what I've heard today, not only with this panel, but the first panel as well, is that it's haphazard among the agencies.
It is completely haphazard, and it's interesting. But if you submit a FOIA request, the exact same FOIA request to multiple agencies, you will get radically different levels of response. And some agencies are more responsive than others, and the IRS just happens to be one that takes the position that they're not going to answer any FOIA request unless you sue them. That's just their that's their default position. So there is no standard of responsiveness, level of responsiveness, how they price things, nothing.
Okay. Well, guys, hang in there. We're doing the best we can. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.